Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Once again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there in the US. At least we're celebrating. And what a gift to be a father and hold that space. So thank you to any of you who are fathers. And I have the immense pleasure to introduce to you this morning an incredible human being that I have met in my travels and that is now working with the Lucia #3 light as well. Please welcome Ines, coming from Bali. Ines is a multidisciplinary artist and holistic healer, and she's going to be sharing with us some insights and practices around deep listening. So I'll let you go ahead and take it away, Ines.
Thank you so much, Allison, and to the Lucia Light Summit and community. It's been a pleasure to be part of this webinar and to share my thoughts and research behind deep listening. So let me start to share my screen. Perfect. So today I'm going to speak a little bit about deep listening, senses, and embodiment. Awaken ears, awaken eyes, awaken nose, awaken taste buds, awaken pores, awaken body, awaken mind, awaken spirit. Play, listen, absorb, reflect. So before starting my talk, I would like to invite you to sit or lie down in your space. And of course, this is all recorded. So if you'd like to go and have a deeper exercise, you can always watch the replays. But for those who are in tune now, I invite you to, sit or lie down in your space comfortably and start to take deep breaths in and out. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Bringing your awareness to this constant rhythm. Again, inhaling, exhaling. Do you feel any changes in your body? Do you remember taking your first breath? Do you breathe like it's the first time, every time you breathe? Breathing, breathe, breath, in and out, in cycle, in circulation. Now begin to open your ears and pay attention to the sounds around you. What do you hear? Natural sounds? Mechanical sounds? What rhythms and frequencies can you find and tune into? Did you notice a new sound that you didn't know was present in that space? How do the sounds change over time? Now, as we stay within this space of presence, I'm going to read a few words from this beautiful poem by Pauline Oliveros called The Earthworm Also Sings. I hear, I am, I receive what is, listening. No argument, my body is sound. Listening guides my body. Sound is the fiber of my being and of all sentient beings without exception. Is sound intelligence? The earth is also sound, guided by sound, and so are all things of the earth. Rocks are her ears recording all of her events from the beginning. My earth body returns to hers, where the earthworm also sings. Inside, outside, vibrations. My bones resonate. My stomach, spleen, liver, kidneys, lungs, and heart resonate. These organs are sound, contain sound. The rhythms of my bodily life encoded in the theater of my mother's womb. I listened from the beginning. Universal process. Cellular language familiar to all sentient beings without exception. Only deep listening returns me to this infinite source of all beginning. Abundance, fecund creativity, brilliant spark, sounding pulse, life unending, beauty of fading physical being, towards that special mysterious silence. Zero vibrations, never zero in this life until the bones disappear. The process of dying, also sound. Sound of becoming another kind of being. Living, dying, pulsing, dying, listening to death, returning to home in the earth, where the earthworm also sings. Shedding physical body, like the earless snake shedding skin, allowing spirit body to soar, at home in the universe. Gathering, learning through hearing what is, inside, outside space. Learning zero vibration is not absolute. Learning there is always living, dying, sounding, leading me deeper. Learning I was born here to hear all my cells through my cells. Each cell singing the song of its structure. Space dance of creation and architecture of sound. I am a community of musical cells. The dance inside, outside. The sound is the dance, is the sound. Space in the sound, dance is silence. Space silence is the resting place of all sentient beings without exception. Inside sound, outside, space, silence, heard, unheard, felt, unfelt, playful universe, inside, outside, the most special pleasure, sound pleasure. Densest bodily community, ear cells more dense than sexual organs. Primary pleasure of one own sound and of other sounds. One's own inside, outside, space, silence. Pleasure shared by all sentient beings without exception. Throughout space and time. Even if I have forgotten to listen, ear is always open. Even if in my filtering moments I am not open to receiving. I hear if I remember. I hear more if I remember to remember. I hear if I experience all the vibrations of my body. My ear is an acoustic universe, sending and receiving. My ear also sounds. Where are the receivers for these tiny, mysterious signals? Inside, outside, the cells? Let us now question the question. What does the ear want to hear? What is there to want when what is always is and will always be? So, as we start to take all of these words, embodying it in our body, when you're ready, I invite you to slowly awaken. If you're having your eyes closed, slowly, gently opening them up, allowing the lights, allowing the colors to come through, allowing your body to feel all of this reality that you're experiencing. Deeply listen. I have begun to dive into the practices of deep listening as a way to find a place of belonging. Deep listening is a tool intended to heighten and expand the consciousness of sound, to truly listen and bring attention to what is happening within and outside of you. From an animistic perspective, everything sounds and speaks and able to communicate with all living things. Everything is alive. Everything is pulsing. Everything is listening and speaking at the same time. However, have we forgotten to listen? Sometimes I feel like we get caught up in our bubbles, our careers, our challenges, our dynamics, our human ways of experiencing life. And yeah, we kind of start to feel like we're concentrating our energies into this little microcosm of ourselves. And this frightens me sometimes because sound influences the way we are and our way of being, what we resonate to, what repels us, what attracts us. And when we get caught up into this little sphere, I've experienced this, I sometimes feel like I'm not listening to my intuition and I'm more in my head, and I feel like the external world is telling me to do things and I have to go here and there, and a lot of movement in the mind. And I need that time to kind of come back into my body and truly listen. Oh, is this really where I want to go? Is this really aligning me to the direction that I want to go towards? Instead of experiencing discomfort in our decisions and reacting from a place of fear. For me, deep listening has been transforming the way I navigate my reality. The world is more alive. Through my body, my mind, my spirit, I feel a deeper knowing of my inner being, my relational being. I've become more sensitive to my subtle energies around me, listening to how my body reacts and responds to certain sounds, spaces, relationships, and ways of communication. Through this deeper knowing, it has guided me closer to my intuition and into my roots. My senses have heightened, and I've become highly aware of the various relationships I have towards certain frequencies. Through this awareness, I am understanding my body's memories of each inhalation, listening to the origin stories of that interaction. It is the consciousness of knowing where my behaviors, perceptions, attitudes, and emotions derived from. So it's like this dance between the internal and external bodies. And so exploring all of this made me question, how can we transcend the sounds into a system of healing, recalibration, and interconnectedness? So I'd like to go back to the very start and speak about hearing and listening. So the poem that I was reading before was by Paulina Oliveros, and she has been a beautiful figure in my life and has guided me in practicing her methodology called deep listening. And she was a central figure in the development of experimental and electronic music, and she coined the term deep listening as a practice of radical attentiveness, as well as a meditative, improvised approach to music. So in this book that I was reading from, it's called The Anthology of Text Scores. So she kind of plays with different ways and approaches of creating music. And it doesn't have to be for musicians, but it's more this way of responding and listening to sounds and creating sounds together, and see how that can manifest and create something through that way of interacting with our spaces. So She explains that to hear and to listen, they both have a symbiotic relationship to each other. They interexchange with one another. She differentiates to hear and to listen. To hear is the physical means that enables perception. It turns a certain range of vibrations into perceptible sounds. And to listen is to give attention to what is perceived, both acoustically and psychologically. It is the experience of the waveforms traveling to the brain. So it's like to hear is what is happening physically. So sound is coming in, but really to listen, we connect a lot to our historical background, our culture, everything that we've learned and associated sound to and given a meaning towards it. And here you can see that I included a little diagram showing the outer ear and the inner ear. And it's quite interesting in how sound kind of comes through the ear. So through the outer ear, kind of goes through the ear canal, going through the eardrum, and then the eardrum starts to vibrate, sending signals to the bone structures there, the incus, malleus, and stapes. And these signals then get sent to the cochlea. It's kind of like a snail. And in this cochlea, there's actually fluids inside that start to ripple in a wave forming along the membrane. And this sends chemical signals to the hair cells and creating an electric signal, which then the auditory nerve carries this signal to the brain and turns it into the sounds we recognize and understand. So there's a whole journey of how we perceive sound and how it also just shapes the way we're interpreting certain things. I find it quite fascinating to see, you know, our different organs and how we're functioning and seeing how we navigate our spaces. So now we're moving into the interplay of sound and silence. So deep listening is a practice in term that does not come from specifically any religious or spiritual contexts, though there are many spiritual practitioners who do use them. For example, Thich Nhat Hanh, a Zen Buddhist monk, has used deep listening in one of his 5 mindful teachings. Here, he shares that it is a compassion-centered listening to restore communication in order to relieve from suffering. So in a way, deep listening is a form of meditation. The awareness is focused in the interplay of sounds and silence, playing within this sound space, silence space continuum. As sound is not just limited to music or to speakings, but all of that is perceptible vibrations. And sound isn't just audible, but it can be inaudible. The way I see sound and silence is as if sound is like the experience and silence is the integration. So I see that I move a lot between these two spectrums. So through sound, I am able to express and become that first person in this reality, being the vibration that is pulsing, experiencing things, going around, flowing with my intuition, learning, absorbing everything. And then after that experience, I go into silence. And in silence, I integrate. I create space to listen, to be part of this larger existence. And then after I sit in silence, I then sound again to respond. And this is a continuous cycle and conversation, dialogue between the external and internal worlds. So through deep listening, I'm able to navigate and find my center through this. Really moving and always stopping everywhere I go to listen, to know how to reorientate myself and move again and respond. It's really paying attention to these multiple bodies. to the inner body and to the bigger, larger body that we're all living in, and finding a balance between self-sovereignty and synergy, as we are individuals, but as well we co-live and coexist with one another. We are interbeings. For me, listening is a way to relate beyond this human world, to bring empathy, to bring awareness to the physical and energetic space of existence. And this idea of feeling wholeness or oneness, not being alone in just my body, but sharing my experience and my way of seeing and perceiving reality together. And I really love this quote by Thich Nhat Hanh. To interbe and the action of interbeing reflects reality more accurately. We inter-are with one another and with all of life. And so it's this idea of listening into myself and knowing how to move, but knowing that when I move, it also ripples out into the other bodies. So how can we do this synergistically? And I see it all moving like a dance, or this big wave or winds that are flowing together in this collective way. This quote that I'm sharing now is a piece of my abstract that I wrote for my essay a couple of years ago. And yeah, I really liked how I introduced it, as this gives a little more insight, let's say, towards my exploration with deep listening, and seeing it that it's, yeah, beyond this human world, but it's this idea of connecting our humanist experience with the natural world and everything that is alive and everything that is part of us. So here I say, we're born into this universe of silence and sounds. As we emerge as vibrating particles with electromagnetic fields, we compose this many-voiced biosphere. Sound is the most universal language for humans, animals, and nature. And animals are deep listeners. When you enter an environment with animals, they're listening to you entirely. Your presence may be the difference between life and death for them. So listening is survival. And we also do this. Have you ever noticed when maybe you're sitting in a space and someone appears or some other creature appears, and it definitely creates a ripple in our field or in our space. And we start to think, oh, okay, how does this person make me feel? Or how does this situation make me feel? Am I comfortable? Am I in discomfort? How does it move me? And then we start to begin to observe maybe this specific someone, like, okay, this is how they move, this is their attitudes. How do I connect to this person? And so, yeah, coming back to how animals are deep listeners, we ourselves use this tool already to respond and to come back into finding safety within ourselves and to know how to react from that space. And at times, we may not know or understand the languages of these other people that we meet, especially when you're traveling to other cultures and countries, and also other species. But if we practice listening, we begin to understand more than words, thus opening a whole new world of understanding and of friendship, and crossing the barriers between species through this powerful connector of sound. There's a beautiful experience that I had a couple of years ago where I was in Hungary. I was at this festival and I was with a dear friend of mine, and we were running up, and there was this huge empty piece of land there, kind of extending out of the festival, where we were going and running, and suddenly there was a shepherd walking. and a bunch of sheep there. And then we started to communicate with the shepherd, and we realized that, oh, wow, we can't speak to each other because we couldn't speak Hungarian or he couldn't speak English. But he had this huge smile on his face, and we just started to communicate beyond words and truly feel and sense each other, and through body language. And from what I interpreted, I felt like he was saying, okay, okay, stay here, I'm going to show you something. Suddenly he made a word and called out something to the sheepdog, and suddenly the sheepdog ran, and all the sheep started to come and start to circulate, like encircle us. We were there in the middle of the field with all of these sheep, just feeling so close, so together, and sharing a bond that was beyond language. It was truly from feeling and experiencing and listening to the presence of one another. For me, that was quite a powerful moment of feeling this interbeing and relational being, where I am living in this reality, not with myself, but with other beings. And so, in my eyes, this is also a practice of empathy. As we're using our curiosity and our imagination, we can become more aligned with one another. As kinship and community are no longer just ideas, but are lived and sensual relationships. And entering this deeper dimension of sound, I feel like I've become sound, and sound becomes me. As we simply just give them the gift of our attention, our senses can begin to remember what belonging means by listening to the changes of progression as well as agony in our community. And so now I've been working with the Lucia for not so long, but I felt a complete resonance with this resonating technology and how it has moved me in ways quite deep within my subconscious realms, and entering this hypnagogic liminal space of being and of communicating within my subconsciousness and allowing me to access these states. As our bodies have a natural impulse to endlessly repair and regenerate themselves, to recreate a state of order and harmony, and to be in tune. And this is what I feel the Lucia can assist us in accessing our subtle bodies and allowing us to undergo this process. And so generally, when I create these sessions and start to invite different light travelers, I try to invite them and bring them into coming back into their bodies, bringing attention to their process of how their body and mind are traveling. I invite them new ways of perception by opening to the wonder of possibilities and of play. Through play, I see that it connects us a lot to our child selves, allowing us to enter the space where everything is possible. Like when we're dreaming. You know, when you're in dreams, suddenly things don't really match up or things don't really make sense. Because suddenly, like, our consciousness just kind of morphs everything together that we've experienced in this reality and start to just put pieces together. And I think this becomes really interesting because then everything becomes possible. You know, as we start to associate certain things, and I understand language is a really important thing, as that's our way of communicating to one another. So therefore, we've created, through language, we've created a specific meaning and function towards certain objects or things in order to understand and relate to one another. But I feel like now, instead of seeing what it is, let's open ourselves into thinking, what can it be? We have the possibility of recreating our whole reality. and of playing with that. And as we start to open ourselves into those spaces, the whole world becomes a playground. And it's asking ourselves, where do we want to play in this playground? What colors do we want to put here? What patterns, what shapes, what senses? And that's where I like to mix a lot of senses and this idea of synesthesia. And okay, I think we all have a spectrum of playing with our senses and feeling sound and seeing um, seeing sounds or feeling colors. And I feel like I've definitely created a lot of experiences like this in my artistic realms where, yeah, it's starting to manipulate our way of experiencing certain things. So let's say, when you touch something that maybe when you see should be slippery and it's actually rough, you have this kind of dissociation happening inside your brain. You're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. But I feel like through not making sense, it starts to expand our minds a little bit and creates this neuroplasticity into seeing and into carving new pathways inside ourselves. And it's this idea of playing with the unknown and not needing to make sense. I like to also do these vocal exercises where it's kind of called the broken radio. And when you're tuning into the radio and it's kind of like changing different radio stations, and so it just goes like, and I've done this exercise where you can have a partner. So if you're interested in this, you can definitely take this away with you and try it. So yeah, you can have a partner with you, and then you take turns. So one person is listening, and the other person becomes this broken radio and just starts to channel out whatever sounds come through, inviting yourselves to just let go and not have to make sense or meaning. Because sometimes for me, I can be very tired of having to make sense in a certain way. And I just need to express everything I need to through forms of sound. Like what we do on the dance floor, we are able to do that also with our voices. And so in this broken radio, it just keeps going and changing. And well, I can do a little demonstration. So for example, like so for me, this is like voice liberation. It helps me really connect back into my body and feel like I have no restrictions also. And I'm just needing to express what I need to express without these limitations of structure to language and being playful. So I welcome this idea of playing with our senses to create more space and to create more space internally, but as well externally. Because when we create this space internally, we are this micro and macrocosm of things. We're able to experience it also in our outer bodies. So I invite us to listen, to play, and to embody. And so now, after all of this knowledge of thoughts, these experiences that I'm sharing with you, I invite you to go out on sound walks, to go out in the city if you're living there, but as well to go to nature, to have both, to experience these different spectrums of different spaces, and to remind ourselves to listen, to see the difference between each environment and see how sounds really move you, and not just through what's passing you by, but even in conversations. How are you listening, and how are you receiving and seeing this interplay and this dance between one another, and inviting you to see how to be playful in that sense. And so now I just want to come back and recenter back into our bodies, and taking a moment to close our eyes, bringing back our attention into ourselves, bridging our thoughts, our minds into our bodies, absorbing, digesting, integrating. And I invite you to take 3 deep breaths. And in the last one, we're all going to hum together. So we take a deep breath in. And exhale. And inhale. Exhale. And on this last one, we're going to hum. To feel the power of your own sounds, your own reverberating bodies, feeling the bones and liquids vibrate, creating an internal embrace. Just to close off this talk with you this morning, there's this beautiful quote or mantra by Pauline Oliveros. Listen to everything all the time and remind yourself when you're not listening. Thank you.
Wonderful, Ines. That was so beautiful. Maybe you can close your screen sharing. There we go. Perfect. And so just a moment. All right. Yes, I can feel the whole shift in our energy field with that. And that's really such powerful words about deep listening. And I hope everyone resonates with in terms of working with the Lucia Light. I think it's very on point. And I just wanted to ask you, as I'm asking everyone here, the speakers, if someone asked you, Ines, what is the Lucia Light? How would you describe what it is or what the experience can be?
For me, yeah, the Lucia Light is this resonant technology that can help us. Well, first, it's definitely a strobing, flashing light that activates our pineal gland, in which starts to entrain and take our bodies into this harmonic state of coherency through playing with these different brainwaves through us. And when we come back into the state of coherency, we're able to access these points and these spaces of communicating between our subconsciousness. And it's inviting that more internal, deeper state of kind of being in between waking state and, of course, the hypnagogic waking state and dream states, and being in that fluidity in order to, yeah, not be so, let's say, so caught up within our own structures and our own boundaries between what we experience in this reality, but it's allowing us to soften and to access this deeper state of vulnerability into our bodies.
So beautiful. And I love how you mentioned the conversation between the conscious and the subconscious, right? And like deep listening has such a big role in that, that taking that deep pause with a Lucia Light session allows for what needs to come up in the subconscious to be heard by our conscious mind. Oh,
Mm.
so beautiful. And in terms of your work with the Lucia moving forward, what inspires you most about sharing the light with others?
Yeah, I think for me, it's this idea again of play, and this idea of, yeah, transforming our own realities and sharing that we have the power to reshape everything that we're experiencing through deconstructing our own limiting beliefs, our own conditionings that we've been brought up with, these structures, but kind of letting, like dissolving these boundaries that we've put on ourselves, and to open that space to play and to reshape that. And I think through that, we're able to, yeah, feel more connected with our intuition and our alignments. And it's not just for ourselves, but it's for the whole collective humanity and beyond.
I love that. It's so beautiful. And would you share with everyone a little bit about how you plan to use your voice and sounds with group journeys with the Lucia Light?
Yes, so actually, I'm also beginning this whole journey now, and soon this week I will be launching my website, well, my landing page. So stay in tune. But yeah, I will create quite multidisciplinary offerings where I will be using the light, but as well inviting my own sounds. So either creating also some soundscapes, electronically, like drone sounds, ambient sounds, but as well live sounds with the drum, with my voice. And I would love to extend this also to other practitioners to collaborate with me, because I do enjoy collaboration, inviting different essences into a certain space. Um, and as well playing with these senses. So, kind of diving into sensorial meditation, bringing in touch into the experience as well, and creating different guiding questions for them to tune deeper into, let's say, how sound is influencing their space, and seeing what they will experience through this awareness.
Beautiful. I love it. And yes, I've collaborated personally with Ines, and it's really wonderful. She brings a whole other level of energetics into the space by opening her voice so beautifully. It looks like we have a few questions. Do you use any instruments to help people with blocks in their voices?
So far, I think I've been using for sure the drum as a constant rhythm, just to kind of create some sort of grounding element. But then it's kind of this idea of, when you have a conversation with someone, and when you start to open and share your experiences, they also feel that safety and that trust. So by just being playful and just being like, okay, this is not a music class or anything, but we're just tapping into these creature forms, and we're just kind of becoming not our human self. And yeah, and just inviting these different sounds, and kind of encouraging each other to vocalize these things that maybe sound absurd to us and that we're not using daily. Yeah, so definitely, yeah, the drum and just kind of playing with different sound makings, vocalizing, I like to call it. Yeah.
Beautiful. And Gillian's asking if you're currently selling any sounds that can be shared for Lucia Light sessions, and what does a session look like with you? So I'm guessing that's if you did a session online. Since Ines is in Bali, if you want to collaborate with her, you have to journey across the world into a magical island, which is not the worst thing, but a bit far. So sound was work. I'm sorry, Jillian, I'm sorry. I pronounced your name incorrectly. But yeah, so what would that look like for you, Ines, if you were going to do something online?
Yeah, I think I would definitely invite some form of I like to start also with tea or something warm or some yeah, liquid just to kind of bring intention into our taste buds as well. So inviting different senses into our bodies, as well as this idea of having something external coming internally, physically, and feeling that sensation coming through us. And then journeying, well, if depending if we all have a light session or not, if it's an online, then having a deep listening exercise. I am right now also taking course of being a deep listening facilitator. So I'm diving into that practice as well. And there's a bunch of different exercises that we'll be doing together, just bringing more radical attentiveness into our spaces and having different, yeah, exercises that we can do together, also through our bodies. So movement based as well, and as well diving into the dreaming world. So looking at how we listen in our dreams. And that becomes really interesting to pay attention to these elements in the dream world. And yeah, and someone also asked about if I shared my sounds for any sessions. Not yet. um, yeah, I think hopefully soon I would be really enjoying to create more sounds and recording them to help accompany some Lucia Light sessions. So yeah, just stay in tune, and I think a lot of magic will be blooming and brewing soon.
Wonderful. And if people are looking for you in the meantime, how can they contact you?
Yeah, so for now, you can just follow my main Instagram account, which is at Ines Deru. But soon, when I'm going to be launching my new kind of brand identity, I'm now calling it Musai, which is inspired by the nine Greek goddesses of inspiration, of creativity, of art, of science. And that will be launched soon through a landing page and through Instagram. But I will share this all directly from my personal account. So then you can follow me there with some more exciting information and news and offerings about my work.
Wonderful. Great. Yes, everyone follow Ines, and she has a lot of very creative artistic expressions as well that really bring you back to that center place in your heart and in peace. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ines. It was really
So much,
beautiful.
Alison. Yes, always a joy to be part of this and to share this magic with everyone. Mm.
Wonderful. Great. And so for everyone, we'll have a a little break here, about 12 minutes, and then our next speaker will be Tina Everback from the Sky Studio in Canada. So thank you so much, Ines, and see you all soon.